Welcome back to Los Comics TV. I'm your host, Javier Hernandez, and today is Sunday, May 10th, 2020. Happy Mother's Day. Just what mothers want to see, huh? A whole bunch of comics on their Mother's Day. Actually, a lot of moms are comic fans, so it's all good. It's a whole new world out there, baby. So yeah, welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to do another episode of The Reading Pile, where I going through a big stack of mostly comics, but I think looks like I got some books there, trade paperbacks and such. I'm just gonna go through some of my stash here and just share some of the stuff I've read over the years. So let me slowly start putting these back on the pile. What are we gonna start out with here? Let's see. Okay, so here's a couple to start with. What did I want to say beforehand? Okay, so yeah, this is episode 23, and I think it's our 8th week of doing the show. So, boy, it's been a great 8 weeks. Sorry here, just had to start. Like I said, you guys don't always have a timer, because I will lose track of time. So, on average, I think we're doing about 30 to 40 minute videos. So I think I'll try to stick with that. Unless there's a big outcry for shorter videos, or on the very offhand, people want longer videos. But I think this format is working for me, so we'll stick with that. Let's see, we're about, what now? Like, this is our 3rd month now of our national stay-at-home pandemic thingy. So let's hope, 3rd month now. Of course, it's affecting the whole world, but let's hope as we move forward with the summer coming up, and hopefully that helps to, slow down or get rid of the virus. And then I guess we have to assess how we all did and everything. So anyway, in the meantime, let's enjoy this episode here. Okay, so right off the bat, I got 3 comics, but you can only see 2 at the time. Okay, here on the left, here's Taco El Gato. This is by a friend of mine, Candy Briones. Hey, Candy. So this is a creator-owned title. Oh, wow. And it's signed personally to me. To Javier, thank you, and thanks for bringing me on board, Candy. I'm wondering if this was at the Latino Comics Expo, or just in general, just, she's happy to be in the circle of friends. But yeah, she does her own, her own work here, writes and draws. Big influence she's getting from Ralph Bakshi and like classic animation like that. So yeah, Cool World, right? Has all that cool, interesting, zany. I want to say it's not adult, like when you think of the word adult, but it's not. It's not meant to be. Well, here we go. Sexy lady there. I mean, she's not doing like a little tiny 5-year-old kids cartoon comic. It's just really fun and very well done. And she does animation too. But this is, let's see, what is this? Issue 1? Yeah, this might be her, unless she did some zines beforehand, this might be her first comic. This was published through Rosarium Publishing. And I believe she's going to be publishing it under her own imprint. But anyway, that's Taco El Gato. And this is just from a couple of years ago. I think just like I'm guessing 3 or 4 years. Oh, 2016, 4 years ago. Okay. Okay, you're wondering, Spider Boy, is that a Marvel comic? It looks more like Marvel, right? Because it's SpiderMan, but it's the Superboy logo. So back in the what is this? 90. Boy, that's tiny writing. 96. Believe it or not, you're gonna have to look this up. Marvel Comics and DC Comics, they joined together for this small imprint called Amalgam Comics, right? Amalgamation, like taking 2 things. So what they did in a whole series of these. So in this case, they got Spider-Man and they got Superboy, and then they kind of gene spliced the ideas together and came up with this hybrid character, Spider-Boy, right? So he's got some Spider-Man stuff, some Superboy stuff, and boy, it's crazy stuff. I mean, there was a lot of weird titles out there, but big fan of the late Mike Wieringo penciler on here, inked by Larry Martin, and inked also by Carl Kessel, who was also the writer. But this is a real fun book. I mean, Waringo had a wonderfully fun style, and it's a fun character, right? I mean, it's not dark or or heavy-handed. It's just like this fun idea of the younger heroes, Spider-Man, at least when he was a teenager, and then Superboy is also a teenage hero. So, and then they would combine all the villains, right? And then like you got J. Jonah Jameson. I don't know if his name is J. Jonah Jameson in here, but they combine like the Daily Bugle, the Daily Planet, and then I guess this is a combination of the Lizard and some Superboy villain. So, like I said, I think these are some agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but they probably have a different name because they're a hybrid. But they had one like Wolverine and Batman were combined as Dark Claw. But anyway, this is Spider-Boy. So if you want to look up Amalgam Comics, Insect Queen, I guess that's probably Mary Jane Watson. And then I don't know the DC reference on that one. Here's Doc Ock, right? Probably mashed with some other character. Anyway, a lot of the characters just in one book I wouldn't know because I'm not familiar with that many DC, like the deep cut DC stuff. So anyway, this is I thought you'll see them do something like this again, only because now that Marvel's owned by Disney, and DC is they've been owned by Warner Brothers for years, but now that it's so much more about like, well, we don't want to combine our movie properties, I'm assuming. So anyway, I think you can always find these in the back issue bin, probably pretty cheap. Speaking of back issue and cheap, the dollar comic. So this is a collection. Wow, it's 1971, so it's an old collection, but it's collecting these. Let's see, it's Fabulous Furry Freak Brothers came out in some previous works here, originally published in L.A. Free Press, East Village, other blah blah blah. So this is a collection at the time of various strips. Anyway, these are done by Gilbert Shelton, one of the Underground Comics creators. That whole movement from the late 60s throughout the 70s. Robert Crumb obviously is probably the first name you always think of when you think of American Underground Comics. So yeah, these guys, man, they're it's like Cheech and Chong. These three brothers, high on pot all the time, chased by the cops, always broke. But yeah, he's a fantastic artist, Gilbert Shelton. I mean, boy, what an ink slinger. Look how much ink is on these pages. Great cartooning in the service of like real countercultural adult underground comics. I was noticing like look how big the panels are here. They get smaller, or at least some of them are way smaller. I'm guessing because these are from probably the newspapers they first appeared in. So it would make sense when you got like a large newspaper sheet. I mean, you can have real small panels in there and still be readable. So, but look, they get pretty small here in this actual comic. But yeah, this guy's a fantastic artist and a great humorist. Obviously, these things are all just nonstop gags, mostly drug gags, and it's basically, I guess, what Cheech and Chong was doing in the films. But we got a master cartoonist doing his thing. So put those aside. This is a weird one. I guess maybe all comics can be weird in one way or the other. Condor Man. This is from Whitman Comics. Oh, so look, it's a Walt Disney Productions. Condor Man was a film, which I think it's copyright 81. So this is a comic book adaptation. I guess, it's kind of like a superhero movie. Well, it was a superhero movie, but it wasn't based on the comic. The comic came after, and it's only based on that one film. And I believe that's Michael Crawford, who probably, I think, was the first guy to play the Phantom of the Opera in the Andrew Lloyd Webber stage production. Hope I got that right. I remember reading about this when I bought it. I got it some years ago. I'm just curious about it. But Whitman, yeah, was one of the many publishers back in the day. This, like I said, this 81, so at least they were around to the early 80s. They did other goofy comics, like Super Goofy from Disney. But the art is this is like what I always refer to, I'm sure a lot of people, just like very basic art, like kind of generic. You know, not to knock the artist. I don't think the artist was credited on here, as far as I know. But you know, it's very standard. It tells a story. Nothing too flashy. You know, the shots are pretty, almost the same shot, just like it's almost like a camera, like on an old TV show, just catching the top part of the, you know, the top torso of the actor or the headshot, whatever. But it's interesting that, you know, Condor Man came out, and I think probably came and went as a movie, but they decided to make a movie adaptation out of it, which I've never seen the film, to be honest. Maybe I should look on YouTube, see if it's up. But it's got a little James Bond in it as far as the fancy car, and this is just part one. I don't know if I got the other end of part one. I don't know if I got, I thought I got the other part 2 and 3, but when I was looking for comics to share, this is the one that came up, issue 1, Condor Man. Here's an interesting thing. This one I bought off the rack. Look at this. So it's not a comic book, but it looks like a comic book size. Issue number 1, Marvel Comics Group, Fun and Games Magazine from the House of Ideas. Hey, it's Uncle Stan Lee. Excuse me, let me lift this up here so I can read it without sticking my head in the camera. It says copyright 76, I think. My eyes aren't that good, and the print is really, wow, the print's really bad. I think it's 79. Yeah, it has to be 79 because it's 50 cents. Anyway, this is, look, it's a puzzle and, you know, mazes and such. I think what he's supposed to do, you'll probably find out which of these is different. I'm not going to sit there and count all the web lines on them. You can tell, look, I had a little collector mentality back then in 80 and 79. Like, I'm not going to write in my comic, but write word search, crossword puzzles, featuring the Marvel superheroes. Some of this art was new, and then that's probably from that's from a comic for sure. I'm not sure if that's Gil Kane. Kind of looks like Gil Kane, but it'd be a different inker. Yeah, I guess you can design your own superhero. Anyway, these are neat because just all the art and just looking at all the characters of the time. Stingray, Storm, X-Word Find, Reflection. So it's pretty fun. This is just fun for me to look through. Howard the Duck Maze. Yeah, I collect, I don't know how many issues this ran, but I know I have several of these. Oh, and oh wait, I shouldn't have shown, this is the answers. I should not be showing you this. Spoiler alert, look at that. All the answers are here. Marvel Fun and Games. Yeah, this is just one of the many comics I'd have in my collection of, you know, self-published work. This is Near Mint Press. This guy's Ken Minter, if I remember. Yeah, Ken Minter, creator, writer, inker, letter, co-creator, and penciler Clarence Pruitt, colorist Les McLean. Cover colorist, yes. And then black and white art. But what year is this? 2000, wow, 2005. You know, I recently looked him up because I saw this the other day. And yeah, he's on Instagram and he's doing, I didn't see any like new comic work from him. I could be wrong though. But he did have some other stuff he was working on. I think some other books. But anyway, I like this in the mid 2000s. There was a certain type of look that some people would go for. I call it like the Mike Allred look, where it's this nice thick line, like they're fun superheroes. You know, you might say they might be retro in some ways, but you know, good, clean fun, but sometimes it'd be a little offbeat. So anyway, this was one of the books I really enjoyed. I think there was a couple of these that I have. The Experts. So I might look that up. Check this out. I know some of you are into this stuff. The New York Outlaws. So let me see what it's Outlaw Comics. I'm not sure if is that the brand, is that the publishing? Or are they just saying it's an Outlaw comic? No, it's Outlaw Comics. Published run by Outlaw Comics. That's awesome. 1985. So look, I have issue 1, the much coveted issue 1, but the one that's really coveted, because look, number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. The one I noticed that when I look things up, and most people seem to be out, don't have number 5, so I think that's the super rare one. But what this is, so this the artist on these, Ken Landgraf. He's kind of a cult hero now at this point. Look at this total like rock and roll stuff here. But yeah, this comic, look at this comic, man. It's got, you can tell he's got the basis of Marvel Comics. Yeah, I'm looking at Paul Galassi, Jack Kirby, Steranko. But because they're self-published, they have a certain, like a low budget, just go for broke, badass, outlaw, because he's doing that on his own. They don't have to stick to any particular comic code or whatever. Shuriken in the forehead. But it's great art, It's got a really great raw style. And at the same time, it's very professional. The man, he knows how to lay down the ink and compose his pages and tell a story. But yeah, these are great books. They're definitely cult classics. I hope I have, let's see. Yeah, look at this. In the second issue, they added a color, right? There's red, shades of red here. This looks awesome. So it's black and white, and then there's like this red they put on with, and then with the screen tones, you can lighten it up. And they got shades of gray in it. Yeah, this is a really kick-ass book. So it's from the mid-'80s, so, you could read this after watching, like, one of the Death Wish sequels or The Exterminator, or some of those really hardcore, action-packed vigilante New York, tough streets of New York type of stories. It looks really great with that third color in it. Man with red teeth, red mohawk, red eyeballs, right? Oh man, this is really good stuff. Yeah, that's some nice big splash pages here, man. He's very generous with the splash pages. Boom. So, look at the number, was this 3? Yeah, it's interesting. So number 3, we go back to, it looks like just black and white. So yeah, it'd be interesting. What was the bump they got when they added that third color? But yeah, this is just kind of like the Wanderers. It's like the street gang, but they're always fighting bad guys and stuff. So yeah, the New York Outlaws, they're cult classics. I got these several years ago, so I was able to find all 4. So if you want to look for these, look through the back issue bins or the online back issue bins. The New York Outlaws. Speaking of digging deep, so one of my favorite artists is Mike Allred. Probably most well known for his creator-owned book Madman, but he's done a lot of stuff. He's done he did a recent David Bowie autobiographic novel. I think it just came out this year. He's a huge Bowie fan, so I'm sure that was a dream come true for him. He did this other show. Oh, the name just escaped me. It was iZombie, which I think is it was 1 or 2 seasons already on TV a couple of years ago. He was the artist on that comic. He's done so much stuff at Marvel and DC. I can't even name it all, but this is an early book of his. This has to be after Madman. Came out in excuse me a minute. I can't read this because it's white on black letters here. Wow, I think it was 94 when I saw it earlier. But so he's the artist on this, written by Malcolm Bourne and M. Dalton Allred, Michael Allred. I bent it. Look, you ruined my comic, people. But yeah, his style's right. 94 is a long time ago. But it's definitely already established here. I'm sure he's gotten to be a better figure drawer, and just his line work is. But this is really good stuff, and I love that thick, bold line work. So yeah, I think Madman would have come out by this time, by 94. I think this is 94. So it's an early work of his. Tales of Ordinary Madness, Mike Allred. So if you're a Mike Allred fan looking for some of his early work, this would be, something to look into. Wow, here we go. done. I had a Howard the Duck issue before, right? On one of my videos. Boy, I'm not gonna turn this into the Howard the Duck show, but man, did I love Howard the Duck as a kid. So I didn't have issue 1, but I did end up buying it maybe 15 years ago, maybe? I don't remember. I have it somewhere. I'm sure I'll be showing you that one day. But yeah, I was buying this off the rack back in 76, 77, this issue. So yeah, that's when it came out, late 76. Right in the middle of the... So in the storyline, Howard's running for president. Carter yells foul. Assassination attempt defended by gunmen. I love the... Look at that cover. Gene Colan... He wasn't the original artist on Howard the Duck. He didn't draw. He wasn't the first guy to draw him. That was Val Merrick. But Gene came aboard pretty early, and man, he just, I don't know, there's something just about, like, that duck looks real. Not that it's a realistic photographic duck. That'd be boring. This is a cartoon duck, but look at the emotion in that. Just the shading, you know, and the the musculature, like the fist, the outrage. I just love that cover. The outrage of the character. Yeah, written by Steve Gerber, who did create the character. And it's, this is a famous, like, Steve Gerber writing Howard the Duck. It's just like a famous example of a writer using a character so perfectly as a voice for, like, social satire, political commentary. And obviously, they're taking on the presidential politics of both parties, taking on both parties. And this is awesome. Steve Gerber actually sold these buttons. He sold them out of his apartment. He would literally, like, you'd send him the money, I don't know, it's $1 or something, and he would mail it out to you. How smart of him to put the image in the comic, right? It's part of the story. But then, he would get the money for that button, not Marvel. So good for Steve. Trapped in a World He Never Made, Howard the Duck. So I'm not going to look through every issue because, like I said, I don't want to do just this. But this issue has really stood out to me as a kid. They all did. But boy, this character, Dr. Bong. I'll have to show you the first appearance of him. Yeah, look at this guy. He's called Dr. Bong. As a kid, I just thought Bong like you're hitting a bell, right? But it's the 70s, and it's Steve Gerber being subversive. Dr. Bong, take it how you will. But here he ends up in Howard's shower. What's that about? But let's see here. So this is a 2-part story. So Gene Colan is doing his thing here. There's this big soap monster shows up, right? Typical Howard the Duck fare. The next issue, though, Gene Colan took a break or something. He was really busy, whatever. So Carmine Infantino was the guest artist. But man, so this used to freak me out. Maybe it's pretty good that there's a change of artists. I mean, Colan's a master, but Infantino doing this. There's this bizarre, and again, great commentary. This group of people, they're out there to clean the world, right? Clean it from. So supposed to clean it up for children, just for society, right? There's too much smut and dirt on the on TV and books and everything. So, but look how creepy this guy looks, just with that happy face, right? These guys have these frozen, guys and girls have these frozen, eternally happy, cheery faces, which something's wrong with that. But yeah, they're just like they're a terrorist outfit. They're killing things to show things how to make it better. Sounds familiar, but and there he is, the grand. What's his name? It's like the Sufi Supreme or something. He throws Howard in the washing machine to clean him up, and of course Howard, bam. And the revelation is, as a kid, it was a woman. He says, "You're a female hairless ape." He called all humans hairless apes. They don't show who it is, and as a kid, I didn't get what that meant. But I guess at the time there was a woman crusader out there in public, pretty much doing what these guys are doing, but not violently. At least not physical violence, maybe violently with their mouth or actions, maybe. But so yeah, Gerber took that on, right? It's like Great stuff. Again, as a kid, you read this stuff, you enjoy it for the weirdness, the humor. Then later on, you start looking at what the social, the underlying subtext was. This is great, right in the middle of Star Wars. He did a Star Wars parody or storyline. May the Farce be with you. Right this very minute in a galaxy too close for comfort. Star Wah. Boy, look at that. If you know Star Wars, I wasn't the world's biggest Star Wars fan back then or now, but that's perfect, right? The trash can and the other characters. Man-Thing standing in for Chewbacca. So, again, so much fun reading these as a kid. And I coveted, oh, look at that ad for Devil Dinosaur. We'll have to show some Devil Dinosaur. I coveted issue 1 as a kid. It was, you know, they say it was like the world's most sold out comic at the time. It was just such a big hit. And I think retailers were hoarding the copies too. I mean, it was like this whole phenomena around the launch of the title. But I remember some years later, it was probably the early 80s, I was still young. I went with my dad to the swap meet. And there I saw, there was a guy, you know, swap meet back then. Guy had a large blanket with a bunch of junk all over the blankets. Nuts and bolts, like screwdrivers he was selling. I don't know. Oil or whatever, cleaning fluids, you know, $1 each. And then he had like a stack of comics. And then like I saw right there, Howard the Duck #1. It's like, no way my dad wasn't going to give me, I think the guy was asking $5, which is only a few years after when it came out. But $5 for one comic, it was ridiculous, especially for a dad. So I didn't get it, but I got it years later, maybe 15 years ago on eBay. I didn't pay too much for it, but anyway, check this out. These are interesting. Again, it's not a comic book, but it's a comic book format. They were sold by the comics. It's nice to love looking at these. The superhero catalog, art by Joe Kubert, if you know your Joe Kubert. These were produced by his school. He had a Joe Kubert school back in New Jersey. In fact, check out some of the young artists or young class members there that were involved with this, including Rick Veitch, Steve Bissett, to name 2 people. But what it was I guess there was this thing called Heroes World. So anyway, back in the 70s, just like now, I mean, there was tons of superhero merchandise. Batman utility belt, racing set, Action Mike, the Micronauts, stamp albums, kites. So I guess this Heroes World was smart to carry all that stuff, right? Because back then you can go find the toys at Toys R Us and what was around back then, Gemco and Fedco. I'm probably dating myself. You guys may not have heard of those stores. I had this just the Fortress of Solitude place. Anyway, but then this catalog, they made a catalog, so they hired the Kubert school to. I used to have a bunch of these Marvel 8-inch Mego superheroes, and DC, and the Joker. Anyway, so the Kubert school did the artwork, and I guess a lot of times they would draw the actual toy. Or I guess they use, sometimes they use the actual production photograph from the company for the whatever the thing was. But it's interesting seeing a lot of stuff drawn by Kubert or his students. There's that Howard the Duck button I told you about. So anyway, these were fun. The Treasury. Remember I did a Treasury episode early on? $2.50 plus 50 cents postage. Oh my gosh, that's crazy. And here's the catalog. Look, I actually did. Oh my gosh, I did fill this out, but I never sent it in. Javier Hernandez, age 11. Wow. Okay. Wow. Anyway, I'm not gonna go through all these. Just want to share how what kind of fun stuff we had. So all the Micronauts toys. So yeah, this would just be bought off the rack. Excuse me, I'm gonna take a drink. Check this out while I'm drinking. This was bought right alongside your comics, but just did a lot of window shopping, just looking through this book, hoping to get some of that stuff. And I eventually would get some of it in Toys R Us, local toy stores. So Steve Gerber had a falling out with Marvel over Howard the Duck. different stories, right? They say this, he says this, but you know, he wanted ownership of the character, and that didn't settle too good. Anyway, so he went to years later. He went to into animation and did other comics. But at one point in the what is this, early '80s? Must be '83. It looks like he was trying to raise money to sue Marvel. You know, imagine how much money it would take to sue a company. So he went to Eclipse Comics. This is one of the big, one of the several new publishers back in the late '70s, early '80s, and he did a creator-owned title called Destroyer Duck. Sounds familiar. Another duck character. Very, obviously this guy's all armed for action. And so he teamed up with Jack Kirby, the artist Jack Kirby, another guy who had a legitimate beef with Marvel. So it's really interesting to see Gerber and especially Kirby, someone of Kirby's stature. Yeah, Steve, I'll team up with you. Try to raise some money and, stick it to Marvel. So this is crazy work by Kirby. It's so fantastic. With, I thought, Alfredo, yeah, the inker. Okay, here we go, down here at the bottom. Yeah, it's really crazy stuff. Again, Kirby doing more of his parodies and social, political satire. But boy, the team of Kirby and Alcala is fantastic. I just love this art. It's so raw. This is one of my favorite covers. I've talked about this before, probably on posts over the years. I mean, look at the, I don't know, just the psychic trauma that the character, just the look on his face as that kingdom background is going nuclear. And I love this little shrapnel flying across and cuts his gun in half. Cuts off the tip of the gun. Although that looks like the tip of this gun. So maybe the shrapnel was knocked to pieces. I don't know what happened. But this is one of my favorite covers. And ironically, Kirby and Gerber left the issue number 5 because in number 6, there's another artist on here, another writer and artist, Gary Cato, and Frank Miller did a cover. Gary Cato did, yeah. I'm not sure exactly why they left the book. They haven't created it, but I do have the whole run. This might be another issue after 7, I think. Or it might be the last one, but I definitely have 1 through 4. Check these out. I don't know if you know this, but the Electric Company, right? They're kind of like Sesame Street. Children's programming, and they were on a PBS channel as well. Maybe it's skewed just a little older. They didn't have like all the puppets, the Muppets and such, but they used to have this live action sequence of SpiderMan, believe it or not. There was a guy, it was the first time you ever saw live action SpiderMan. Spider-Man didn't talk in the episodes. He would literally animate a word balloon when he's fighting these like very funny, goofy villains. So anyway, Marvel decided, pretty smart, to do something called Spidey Super Stories, where they were very, very the Spider-Man stories, but geared toward very young readers. I mean, look how big the lettering is, and they're very simple stories. Nobody gets killed. It was a smart idea, though, right? Get the younger readers into Spider-Man comics, especially after watching them on Electric Company. Here's Doctor Doom trying to take over United Nations. But these were fun to read. That character was in the Electric Company. I think that was Morgan Freeman, if I'm right. I know, yeah, it has to be, because Morgan Freeman was on there. So he was a guy called Easy Reader. So he made it into the comic, too. But you can look these up on YouTube, the episodes. And then there was a collection. I got this. I didn't get this back. I had the comics, but this collection came out almost the same time. Some, late 70s. But this is a collection of some of the stories. I love the artwork. There's a Win Mortimer was the penciler. I think it was a DC artist. Maybe Marvel in the 60s, maybe. But he's got a great style. It's a nice, clean, simple style. It just reads like, yeah, this is a kid's comic. Oh, there's that Doctor Doom story. So, Spidey Super Stories, fun stuff. Excuse me a second. Well, you know, I'm not gonna get through all these today. Let me show you. Okay, I gotta show you this. This is my first X-Men comic that I ever bought, which I'm surprised because I was buying comics when they were 25 cents. So, and then they went to 30, 35. So I missed two price jumps until I got X-Men. Copyright 78. This is the June 70. Yeah, June 78 issue. So I bought it sometime in the summer. Wow, that's yeah. But I remember I seen this on the on the rack. It was in a supermarket actually, and it's like, and I think I've heard of X-Men because you would see ads in the other comics for them. But I really do not remember having a reading an X-Men comic. So, excuse me, one more second, man. My voice is running dry again. But what caught my eye was, well, just the name X-Men is great. But like, wow, what's this? So they're circus freaks. The Storm, the goddess of elements, Colossus, the Nightcrawler, Man or Monster, and the Wolverine, right? The human savage. Killer Beast in human form. So what happened is, so that's Banshee, he's one of the X-Men. So what happened is they're all brainwashed, including him. So he's the carnival barker, and all the X-Men have been captured in a previous issue, and they're put on display as monsters and freaks. And there's the Beast, one of the original X-Men, scoping them out. So this was very fascinating as a kid. It's like the idea of like, oh, they're mutants, they're born that way, and then wow, somebody imprisoned them and put them on display as freaks. Oh, that's the guy Mesmero. Excuse me. So of course, the Beast helps him escape. And there's Wolverine, that classic 70s yellow and blue costume. There's Jean Grey as Phoenix. And in short order, they break out, and fight off all the carnival security guys, whatever you call them. And then at the end of the issue, they confront Mesmero, who faints, and then right here in the shadows, I love this shot. You see the guy in the shadow at the computer, and then you see some light hitting him, and it's Magneto, one of their oldest enemies. So that's a great build-up there, and then boom. So anyway, as far as I know, my very first X-Men comic. And yeah, like most kids back then, I was suckered into all the Chris Claremont, John Byrne, Terry Austin X-Men comics at the time. Great stuff. This is not my first Spider-Man comic. My first, because I can tell, because I know when he gets thrown off the bridge here at the end by the tarantula and the jackal. The next issue, this is the cover almost, him going off the bridge. That's the one I bought as a kid. My first Amazing Spider-Man title I bought off the shelf. So this was a friend of mine. He had this comic. I remember because like, oh, look at this, the tarantula and the art with Gil Kane cover. I mentioned before, I think he's probably the best Marvel Comics cover artist. That's a good example. But I wanted this comic so bad. And I think we must have traded because, like, back then, once the new comic came out, it was hard to get the old one. I mean, because the damn store clerks, the liquor store clerk, would probably just rip the cover off and send it back for credit. And there was no back issues available back then for the most part. So I must have traded him, my neighbor Frank, for this. But yeah, Ross and look at that. Look at that great sequence there. Spider-Man flipping over and karate chopping the tarantula. It's one of my favorite storylines too, the Gwen Stacy clone saga. Check this out. I had this stack. I happen to have these three in a big stack. My number ones, I got a couple of number one issues. They were done, of course, even today, right? But back then it was really exciting to buy a number one. And it's the superhero women. This is interesting too. 30 cents, and then it went to 35 cents, and then 40 cents. And this is the other interesting thing. I guess it's a copyright issue, whatever, right? So Marvel owns Captain Marvel at the time. Well, yeah, they had a Captain Marvel character. So hey, let's make Ms. Marvel. We own Spider-Man. Let's make Spider-Woman. And then, Incredible Hulk, especially at this time, the TV show was on, the Lou Ferrigno show. We got to claim the name She-Hulk. So boom, boom, boom. We have, at least in this case, these three superhero women. created partially to control that copyright name on that, but these characters have been around forever now. I mean, this is from the 70s. This is probably from 80, 79 or 80, 79 it looks like. So yeah, these characters have been around forever. And then of course, Carol Danvers evolved into taking the title Captain Marvel, and now she's had her own film. And She-Hulk, so anyway, this is confusing, right? He's also Captain Marvel, but you know what? I'm not going to go into it now because we're running out of time. But yeah, more of the comics. Let me just go over this one because I don't have to open it. Tom Shelley. So Tom Shelley is known to a lot of comic fans. He's an independent creator, but he's done stuff for a lot of companies. He just recently did the Fantastic Four for Marvel. Oh my gosh, I forgot what it was called. So dumb of me. How can I forget something like that? It was like a 2-part story. Ed Piskor did like an XMen one. I know one of you's probably yelling the name out, but yeah, I can't hear you. This is already, it's not live. That's just driving me crazy. Anyway, but this is early Tom Shelley. This is a self-published work. I just want to see the date on here. Well, there's a copyright on here. Oh, okay. First edition, June 2003. Wow. So, yeah, I definitely ordered this from him from his website back then. This is great. But, yeah, when he first came out, he's self-publishing his work. And he had a very, very big Jack Kirby influence. Look at that art. In both art style and both, like, the subject matter, cosmic gods and heroes and, this weird Kirby techno stuff and monsters and just all-out action. Just really strong storytelling. So he's evolved. Wow, 2003. It's almost 20 years old. He did a G.I. Joe versus Transformers, right? He did a GoBots miniseries for IDW recently. So he's done a lot of work for a lot of the larger independent companies. Oh, Fantastic Four Grand Design. That's what it's called. That's his probably most recent work. So I'm sure he's working on something new. But yeah, this is very early Tom Shelley. And I'm not sure if these were individual issues or this is just a full graphic novel. Because I know there was individual issues of the Myth of 8 Opus. But he's pretty prolific. He has a hell of a lot of work to his credit. So check out Tom Shelley. Okay, well, like I said, I guess we got, I'm not going to show you the stack off to the side. There's still another, almost the same size of stack of stuff to go through. But, we're done. We're done going through stuff here. I love this She-Hulk. Written by Stan Lee and art by John Buscema. Look at that. I'm supposed to wrap up the show, but it's like, hey, let's look at some John Buscema art. Yeah, Bruce Banner. David Banner's the one from the TV show. He gives his cousin Jen, was it Jen Walters? Jennifer Walters, a blood transfusion because she got shot or something. And of course the blood, it's gamma radiated, so when she gets angry, she turns to She-Hulk. That sexy John Buscema She-Hulk. Awesome. Rom, we'll talk about Rom. And that's my favorite She-Hulk costume, just a ripped up one piece. If the Hulk ran around in ripped up pants, she can also run around in ripped up one piece suit. Later on, they gave her costumes and boots and all that, but I like the savage She-Hulk. Anyway, thanks everybody for indulging once again, and hopefully you found this interesting. Checking out a bunch of old comics from across the decades. Please continue to, subscribe if you haven't, or share, let people know about it. Tell people there's a lot of interesting content on here. And we'll get back together again for next episode. Thank you.